Order, pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mr. Bornall?
Here.
Mr. Fernandez?
Here.
Mr. Grady?
Here.
Ms. McNair?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Paradis?
Here.
You have a quorum?
No, online. There's somebody.
Can
Rob.
ask, is there any audience of citizens? Anybody want to speak?
Okay. I have a motion to approve the prior meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve the December 10th, 2024 meetings minutes.
Okay. Discussion. Favor?
Aye.
Abstain. Okay, item at point.
So the town attorney has a conflict on the second Tuesday, so he can't be here. We can talk about incorporating him into budget discussions if you would like when we get to that point. But I did request your 3 questions, and this is his response. He's vetted it. He asked me not to include it in the package, but note the attorney work product, just because of the various information that is included in here. There's really 4 buckets to consider, which would obviously we've talked about, at least 3 of them pretty extensively. There's the charter, there's the VNA guidelines or what they established, there's the Department of Public Health. And then also, as we start talking about whether you would reduce staff and potentially outsource, he did remind everybody that you have union and collective bargaining agreement considerations. We can't just unilaterally outsource someone's position. So, with that, the first question, hopefully I framed them the way you wanted it. Where in the town charter does it require that an employee of the town must provide the VNA services? He talks about, I can allow you guys to read
Yeah, I read through it. His answer is sort of what I was making the argument for. It's
Yes.
like, it's somewhat ambiguous that states that you have to have employees for all the positions. So I understand what he said. This is one of the things that we asked, and he's saying arguably you could do this.
Now, he did point out with the merger question that if it causes the VNA to cease to exist in the merger, then it would be in violation of the charter. So it depends what survives the merger.
Would have to be called a role,
And it has to be under the
guys,
jurisdiction of
under the administrator, an overseer.
Hard to get somebody to buy.
Another agency.
It would be more likely that you would go with number 2, where you outsourced everything to the administrator.
Right. Which is kind of what we've been looking to do for.
We're almost there now.
Well, I guess I throw out one other option is with regard to the merger, is to maybe just kind of try to get some information if anybody's even interested. I know it would require a charter change, but if we found out that this would be a really feasible thing, it would enhance the services to the town, it would cost less money, or we would not lose as much money. I think if you found that out, you could go back and say, do you want to keep it the way it is, losing $700,000 a year? Or if we can make a charter change, we could merge with this other organization and provide better services. It might be worth looking at a charter change for something like that.
Because we went down that road already.
No, but we didn't go down the road with that option.
Not
No.
with Deb agreeing to what the ultimate result would be.
Right.
The last thing we tried to do was eliminate the
Well,
wording.
we said we
or
wanted to
change the wording,
right,
so
and
that
we wanted to sort of like re-engineer the whole
Yeah.
thing. They said, well, you're not telling me what you're re-engineering it to, so no, I don't want to go down that path. I think it's different if we had another solution,
if they bought into
if
it.
they bought into it.
Yes.
And maybe it's not even feasible, but
So is your suggestion trying to determine if there is a viable merger option
Yeah.
and then potentially
Anyone's
reopen the charter and ask the
find
question?
out if this is a viable
Well,
one.
Well, the other thing is that it comes back to, we ask a question, we try to get an answer. And without the attorney being here, he throws out the new thing here, okay, union requirements. Oh, okay, so then the follow-up is, what do we have to do? What's the implication of that?
It's just,
I mean, tell us what we're facing so that we can consider options, but now we don't know what those are because, I mean, it's good that he threw out we know that there's a union, we knew there's issues, but it's like we ask one question and we get another thing thrown at us. And
Well-
there's no ability for us to re-ask questions.
And there's two unions that would actually be affected. There's the nursing union as well as the clerical or white collar union have employees in there. So it would be a matter of sitting down with the unions. We've outsourced positions. Berlin Water Control billing and collections was outsourced. There were white collar positions and the union frankly didn't object at all, encouraged us to go do it. And so we did, and it has saved money and added service compared to what we had. It wasn't the only option, but it was the one we went down and the union was okay with it. In this instance, I would find it highly unlikely because the nurses union is school nurses and the VNA. So they would essentially have to agree to eliminate themselves.
We would obviously have.
Yeah,
we just
and
swallow some.
There might be a way that you can absorb from the.
Good
the
question,
school.
Ben.
yeah, I mean, the challenge there would necessitate what George said with opening up the charter, because the charter specifically says that the school nurses have to be under the administrator.
Right, but if you're gonna have a merger and you're gonna still have an administrator.
Right.
That would,
Well, the other part of hypothetical, let's assume healthcare takes over the service. Just,
yeah,
assume,
name it.
okay. We have our own administrator here. Why can't Hartford Healthcare take on the people, hire those people as part of their organization so they wouldn't lose a job? Possibly. So I don't know, because bottom line is this model, Ryan, we've been going on with this
I've heard.
for years,
Mhm.
okay? And this model goes only in a couple of towns, maybe one other town. And you just can't compete with these, big insurance companies. So what option is? They get hired by Hartford Healthcare and we still have an administrator. And it's more of a clean situation possibly. I don't know, but we're just looking at various options. We're not saying, it's gonna all happen, but it's worth looking at the options.
the other thing, whereas there are not a lot of, or hardly any, like one or two, like you said, other town operated DNAs, there are other DNAs. There are
Right.
ones that are operated by, I believe, like in the Y, and there are other organizations that run the DNAs. So that's, maybe a tri-town DNA or, something like that. If there are any even adjacent to us, I don't know. I don't know if you know.
I think they're far away.
Pardon?
I think they're far away, the towns
far
that
away.
have,
There's only a handful.
Yeah.
It's not one is in West Willis.
the other ones, I don't
One
know,
was in
yeah,
Fairfield County. Orange.
yeah, it was Orange was
Yeah,
one.
they're all.
Yeah, I didn't mean town. Six other ones.
There's two left, Orange and
Well, they're
Westbrook.
down to two.
Ledyard closed, so
Orange
Orange and Westbrook.
Westbrook.
What's the town that opened in Fairfield County? There's one down there,
Well, Orange has it,
Orange.
which encompasses about
They're,
13
it's an area,
towns.
they run that like an actual business
Business.
DNA, which is what we probably should be trying to go to. But it doesn't seem like we can get cooperation from the actual VNA itself to do this. We should be looking to expand it, make it into a profitable organization, but everybody fights that.
Well, I mean, I guess we can look at it's merger possibilities, I guess, and see if there's options.
I'm coming in with a fresh set of eyes. I'm open to, I'm here, to work on the town's behalf or to, the Board of Finance and the town council says to explore options, I think we can explore options, but it's gotta be within the town charter, and so if that means opening up the charter and trying again, I know that we've kind of gone down that road previously. But, I know you're talking about different options as far as, would the town, would the public support a merger or something? As that's a valid question that I don't think we have an answer to yet. So I mean, exploring Hartford Healthcare or you know, whoever may come in. I mean, it's definitely worth exploring, provided that we stay within the parameters of the town charter. So, I mean, that's really, we have to work with that. Right now, unfortunately, the way, you know, your hands are, you know, tied, you know, right now, I think you guys have done a lot of good work as far as streamlining what you've done so far from what I've seen. I mean, you know, Kevin shared with me the financials as of December, and you know, compared to last fiscal year, I mean, things have improved. And so, you know, I would count that as a win, you know, and you do have to think of, sometimes it's tough to make money on everything. Is it a service that we're getting value for? Yeah, I don't know. I'm the new guy, so I'm just asking a question.
Breaking even would be incredible.
That would be a win. That would be a home run.
Absolutely.
To expand it into an actual business that breaks even would be a miracle.
What's difficult, because I did meet with Edie last week, and she kind of and she did get that extension. Did you see
Okay.
that did come through? So that's good
Till
news
June.
for us on that. In talking with her, it seems like, well, one, the staff has been really trimmed down, which I think that's where you're saving on your expenses. But at the same time, if you want to grow revenue, I don't know if you can grow revenue without growing staff. I think that's the problem. And what Edie's saying is that they're purposely targeting uses that are going to bring in the most revenue. So they're trying to be strategic in that. Kevin, is that correct? So
They're definitely being much more strategic than we have in the past in terms of
With the accept.
reimbursing CCCI, Medicaid, doing that, as well as geographically tightening it up.
So with regard, you know, in terms of reducing their staff, what we try to do is, and not the current person that's trying to fill the director slot, but the previous one, in conversations with her, you know, we were finding out that, you know, they're not even anywhere near, they'd be lucky if they were 50% utilized.
really,
Okay, in the course of a day, they didn't have enough work, and they were doing kind of like filler work for her the rest of the time. So, because there was always there was a question I keep throwing out all the time, and we had a hard time getting an answer. I don't think we ever did get an answer.
No.
Like, what does it cost to get $1 worth of revenue? You know, it's a very simple business concept, and they could never tell us that. So we, you know, because they had so much downtime, the moves that we made in terms of reduction of staff was to try to move it more to a staffing pool that was flexible, i.e. through per diem people. They can use as many per diem people as they can do, type of deal. So to a large degree, and that's like, you know, key critical resources like physical therapists, occupational therapists, nurses, whatever. They can hire as many per diem people as they can if they can grow that business. So that was the concept of why we reduced things, to reduce the non-used bench people, basically, to try to cut that down. The other problem that we've had, I don't know if you're aware of, it's like, we just cannot keep leadership here. We're on our 5th director in 5 years. Nobody can stay in the job. And this is my perspective. And this one is probably going for it to a degree because, you know, we're working through getting her through the education to get her to that point. Well, my fear is we get her to that point and there's a lot of lucrative opportunities out there. Who wants to be the director of a DNA with 4 people when I can go and have a career path with Harvard Healthcare or, you know, Trinity Health or, you know. Well, I just think it's a poor business to be in personally.
Well, I'm not going to disagree. You know, unfortunately, right now, you know, you're called to be in it, and you know, my meeting with that employee, I didn't get that feeling. I got the sense of someone that cares. That,
I think she cares too.
So I think you guys have made some very smart decisions to streamline the staff, and I think, as you pointed out, it's a tough business to be in because you're competing against the big players, and the big players can take that work. And so I think in order to cut the losses, you guys have made those decisions to cut staff where you can. If you push too hard on the per diem though, you do run the risk of staffing issues, because not everybody's gonna wanna work on a Saturday night or, cause it is, especially the nurses, the 24/7 nature of the job. I'm learning all this. As you pointed out, there's only 3 VNAs in the state. Portland wasn't one of them. So I'm brand new at this and I'm just trying to, look at where you guys are at. I think you should celebrate, the success that you've made in a year, because this is, you're still losing, you're still losing, but you're losing a lot less than you were a year ago. And I think that's a win right now with where you are. I mean, it's a tough market to be in. So if you want to explore options, I think, I'm here to facilitate what you and the council want to do. And, but, we just got to work with Jeff and make sure that we're in line with the charter. And right now, I think the employees that I've met so far, I haven't toured anything yet, but like I said, I met with Edie, they're working pretty good. But I'll know more.
Do you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
All right. So we did a study, a 3-month study, a quarterly. You guys remember that? It was 90 days, and looking at the paper, they only worked for 45 days. Half of those 3 months, no one worked. But yet we're paying the salaries. Kevin, can we bring back those reports? Can we just finished the 4th quarter? Can we have a report for that?
Sure.
Okay. I agree with George on a lot of things that he said. And we have been discussing that for the last few months, and we just keep going in circles, chasing our own tail.
I think that,
To have attorneys answer our questions with questions, it's a useless.
but if anything, I mean, we've always said that if you read the charter, it was a little ambiguous, and it does allow for having outsourcing. We finally got something, at least in writing, that says, you could outsource those services based on the current charter. So we don't even get that answer.
Yeah, there's other things
Before we
that
were
you
told
might
we
have to
couldn't.
answer.
So at least we got that. Now let's maybe look at exploring the options and, let's go slowly, just to see where, maybe we have to bring Jeff, the attorney here.
Yeah.
Before we even go any farther, just for any more clarifications, and then maybe we then after that, look at the options,
Bringing questions, it looks like the best thing would be, to check with DPH.
Yeah.
And clear it through them, because that's kind of what he's saying, is that, yes, you can do it, but to make sure you clear it through DPH before you trust.
Well, I don't understand what DPH has to do with the fact that we have a charter provision.
Licensing agency.
Well,
No, if we're outsourcing it.
I mean, obviously, we're gonna outsource with a licensed entity. I mean,
A contract. Yeah.
I'm a little, up in the air as to what he, what it is he's thinking is a problem here. If we have an administrator dealing with a licensed agency, tell us the problems then. I mean, if he sees something that might be a problem with DPH, tell us.
Well, he may not know, but maybe DPH has requirements that he's unaware of, even with a VNA or an
Do
outsource.
we now have a problem hiring nurses on an outsourced basis? I mean, our per diem stuff, aren't we doing that now to a certain degree?
We are, but yeah,
So
they're following,
That's just work we got from the auditors that the attorney that it's in here that said that what the minimum that we had to have was,
That was from Marosha.
yeah.
well, that was from
I just think
the attorney at Shipman.
you need to make sure that
Well,
you're doing whatever.
Yeah, I
DPH
That's
wants.
kind of what we're
Yeah.
going
That's all.
for. The question is, why did they say this?
To me, this,
Well, yeah, I don't understand
think-
what it means, so.
I don't think it's.
Well, 'cause I think practically speaking, with our history of how this goes with charter revision and the VNA board, that are only, in my mind, the only thing that is practical is to go to an outsourcing where we keep an administrator, they handle the outsourcing and they continue to oversee this, the school nurses. As we,
Yeah.
that takes care of all the things, you know, in the charter at that point, without doing away with the VNA.
And I think the shipman was looking at it from, if we were to remain a licensing agent.
Yeah.
If we outsource it, we would no longer be the licensing agent, so we wouldn't need those minimum employees. We would only need the administrator to keep the VNA name in the town of Berlin, because we would no longer be the licensing agent.
Yeah.
Which there again could also lead to questions with the DPH. Can we do outsourcing with a separate administrator that's not part of the licensing agency? So that may be the only questions I could see.
Jerry, when you say outsourcing, do you mean hiring per diems?
No, I'm saying like,
Contracting.
we refer everything to Hartford Healthcare or Trinity.
Whoever it
or
is, yeah.
whoever,
And I
The
think,
administrators, the
yeah,
town.
and they do the billing.
in conversations, I was a part of some of the conversations with Shipman on this, and one of the big things was, in order to be an agency, so in order to be a VNA, there are minimum services you must provide. So we would have to be able to directly provide
Well,
certain things.
that's the operative and the ambiguous word,
But you're-
services.
And you're still
Okay,
providing them.
You mentioned the service you outsource. Are you providing the service to the
Right.
town?
You're just
You're
not,
providing the service.
But that's where-
You're not doing it with.
But that's where
An
Jeff is, that's
employee.
where Jeff is saying we need to validate with DPH that it will comply because, well, anyway.
right.
Sounds
First-
like a
first
lot,
Right.
even-
sounds like a lot of legal bills
Yeah.
and interpretations.
That's been my life for the last 3 months with some longstanding settlements and other things.
So what we define as a merger, who would we merger with?
Can't hear you very well.
Who would we start the merger conversations with?
And who we merger with? Because those guys,
Well,
Whoever wants us.
Jerry's talking about not the merger option.
yeah, I agree. Like there's the orange and down there, like they're not gonna come up here.
No, a private, like a, not a municipality, but another agency.
A private business, basically. Okay, okay.
Probably you put together an RFI or request for
Yeah.
information.
Yeah.
Send it out.
Hey, let's
See if there's any
What-
interest.
What this doesn't do though, is answer the question that we've been asking ourselves for the last, years is, we've been looking at this to try and reduce the deficit as much as possible. All right, we've already been through, give them more people to make more revenue. We've already been through that. That didn't work.
Could that have been
Yeah.
because of the particular administrator at the time?
I don't know. I just know we tried it and it didn't work. We tried expanding and, now we're giving services to people in Southington, in Cheshire and wherever. And obviously we're subsidizing every person that's getting services. So now we're subsidizing people outside of town. So we've been through all of those, iterations and, the question that we keep coming to, we came to it last year is what is the lowest level that we could fund them at and stay in with, not run afoul of the charter and DPH. Okay, and I don't think we've ever really gotten ourselves to knowing what that is, even with this letter of, we need this position, we need this position. I think that's still a question that's out there.
The risk, the only risk that you run if you push too much is with revenue. If you trim too much, my concern would be, if you look at last fiscal year, you had brought in 259 at this point last year. You're at 217 this year with some substantial cuts, that you made. So if I guess so I'm coming into this, obviously I'm thinking about the budget, I'm thinking about fiscal year 26 and how that's gonna shape up. Sounds like this is an ongoing, this is something I know you guys have all been working on this for a long time. You've made some substantial progress. You've kind of tried to figure out what works, what doesn't work, and we're still trying to figure out within the parameters of what we can and can't do, what our options are. And so So this isn't, what I'm getting at is I don't think this is gonna be solved with the upcoming fiscal year budget. This is really a long-term strategic, you know, how do we navigate the VNA within the next 5, you know, and even 10 years, you know? And so like I said, I'm here to assist. I just, you know, when I look at, you know, where we were and where we are as far as revenue, my only concern is that if you cut and you put more per diem, which you could do, or, you know, you would lead in the revenue, so I don't know.
Yeah, we've looked at that and it's almost like getting to the point of what is the acceptable minimum amount we will lose.
Right.
Okay? Understanding that you know, the revenue is doing what it wants to. It's almost now down to the last resort of what's the way to lose the least amount of money, at what level?
Exactly.
Thank you.
You got our hottest item in the first meeting.
I wish I had a magic wand for you guys.
Me too.
You'll have that solved next week.
Yeah, right.
I have a motion on it.
Move to approve a fiscal year 2025 non-budgeted appropriation FEMA storm reimbursement funds in the amount of $40,000 to the alternative fuel site account in the capital non-recurring fund for the installation of an alternative fuel site at Timberland Golf Course, and $224,212.46 to the disaster recovery initiatives account, disaster recovery fund, for costs the town of Berlin incurred extinguishing the fire on Lamentation.
That all?
Yeah,
So when we say non-budgeted grant, is that what we basically?
In August of 2020, you probably will recall the significant windstorm that went through. It knocked over one of the poles on Scalise Field, tore out some of the wood signs that were on the fencing, took out some trees. We were reimbursed very quickly for labor for overtime that we had, but there was also other damage. We have recently completed the audit with FEMA. I realize that's 4 years later, but we recently completed the audit with FEMA. So this is, it's non-budgeted, but it's money that we've received and we're looking to use it. Yeah. And the alternative fuel site plays right into some of the questions we get about sustainability. We get them from the audits, we get them on bonding. What are you guys doing longer term? I know we have solar panels and other things we're doing. And then the other piece is we just incurred so far about $190,000 locally for the fire in Lamentation Mountain. And we are in line, we've already submitted, so we are already in line for the FEMA fire grant. It's only Meriden and Berlin, as well as the state of Connecticut, to qualify. So we look to get this money back, but for now, it's just appropriating what was spent in light of an emergency.
could Mr. Sons tell us just a little bit about the alternative fuel site,
Sure.
the need for that?
Need for that.
Well,
been only
why we're
Working
doing
on it for
it.
20 years.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's going on?
Yeah,
So the
no, I'm not saying we don't need it. I just for informational purposes, anyone watching.
Town complex is in a floodway. Every so often it floods. It usually floods over 18 inches up to probably 3.5 feet of water. That eliminates the town fuel site for, especially for gasoline vehicles, as they are lower to the ground than some of the bigger diesel trucks that can't get in there. So we're talking that it eliminates the fueling for police, some of the fire vehicles, administrative vehicles, facility vehicles, all those will not be able to be fueled until the water recedes. And in the event that we should lose the fuel site for another reason, anything can happen. That we found out, we never thought we were in forest fire danger. What happened there? This would provide us a fuel site, secondary fuel site, that we could run out of that fuel site. So the whole project is that we put a 4,000 gallon tank out there. 4,000 gallon tank should give us approximately 10 days fuel. if it was filled. And we try to keep the tanks filled when storms are coming for reasons,
Obvious reasons.
that would affect the fueling of vehicles or the tanks themselves if they were flooded. So that would give us a backup or a secondary fuel site. So we would build the site. We have a tank that was taken out of Berlin High School that was cleaned here earlier this year. And it was taken out of there. We could utilize that because the largest expense is on-wall tank, above ground fuel storage tank. And we would put it out there and we would manage it through the fuel systems that I run already. We would have a secondary or a backup fuel site for the town. It could also be utilized to just say that vehicles are out there doing service work or out there patrolling police cars, instead of going all the way to the complex for fuel, they could stop in there and fuel them. So it would give you a little more traffic out there.
Thank you.
So aside from that reason, is there a reason are like backups from the commercial gas stations in town not an option?
Well, to start off with, the backups in downtown Berlin also flood. So you can count those out. Citgo, Mobile, you can count those out.
Okay.
Those have flooded, which we've lost thousands of gallons of gasoline down the river from those. So that brings you to fuel sites that are on the Berlin Turnpike. And in doing that, you would now be paying, you would be at the mercy of the vendor. And then be putting in for reimbursement for taxation on those.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, how often does it happen? Yes.
Well, it probably happens a little bit more than you think. Since I've been there, it's probably happened at least, I'm gonna say at least 12 to 18 times. In fact, we've had it 1 year where it was back to back. And you gotta understand that, you know, how often does it happen? You have to understand that the environment is changing. The storms are getting worse. And you're gonna have more and more flooding from rain or other problems out there. It's just the way the trend is, whether it's global warming or not. I don't believe in global warming. I believe in cycles. And I just think that we're in a bad cycle right now.
So would this have the capability of pumping if your power was out, be able to get generator power up there?
To be able to get generator power. I actually proposed to put a generator up there a long time ago. The one that is now at the community center. The facility up there lost power because of a dump truck accident on Southern Road. And they lost all the food and coolers and everything. And I says, well, we have a generator here, why don't we just, you know, put a generator up there and have it stand by. Well, that's why we save pieces of equipment so that we can reutilize it here.
We have one, they're almost done installing at the senior center.
That's the generator.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yes, we have trailer generators that we would be able to move into the complex.
Okay.
And in reality, the fuel system is it only takes a 110, a small electric motor that operates the pump system.
Yeah, I didn't think it'd be anything big, just portable generator would do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Move to approve the fiscal year 2025 non-budgeted appropriation of $445,000 in the general fund unassigned fund balance for upgrades to the IT closets at BHS to mitigate damage in the event of a fire, $50,000. New school vans, $150,000. The purchase of a new truck for facilities, $55,000. The purchase of a new large rotary mower for grounds, $160,000. And hiring an engineer for the proposed repair renovation of sand traps at the Timberland Golf Course, $30,000.
Second? Second. Discussion? I have a question on the school vans. We have a list of school vans here. And I thought last year we had a discussion with the Board of Education that the town would buy 2 vans. And the Board of Ed would buy 2 vans. That's really perfect. and I see the 2023 vans on there. I don't see the 2 vans that the board of ed.
I know Ashley did follow up. The person who was handling the van area is no longer with the Board of Ed. So, she did have some conversations. No one recalls that, conversation about 2 vans being bought by the Board of Ed.
That's.
Yeah, that was the conversation though.
Yeah, I'm just saying that.
Talking about the trucks, he was brought it out, that's why we were replacing the trucks.
Yeah.
I mean, this wasn't
Right.
complicated, they wanted 4 vans last year. And we said we would pay for 2 if they wanted to.
I'm not saying that didn't,
No,
I'm saying they
I'm
didn't,
saying-
nobody recalled the conversation.
So, once again, we're gonna buy more vans.
Yeah, I mean, I would just I guess I would encourage everybody to look on the top part of the first page. There are a lot of quite old vans with 150,000 plus that are carrying school kids every single day. So the idea behind the 150,000 is to try to catch up on where we are. The goal would be to continue at this level. How you might want to do it is for a budget discussion in terms of that versus the Board of Ed budget. But I think this level will need to be sustained for probably 3 to 4 years to catch up, with the idea that after that, it would be maybe a van, maybe 2 each year. Very similar to what Jim talks about with many of the cars in town, is that if we can fund a certain level, we talked about police cars, we talked about, I think it was 3, and I was talking about the 4 annually, keeps us on pace. We went through a period where we were behind at about 6 or 8 in about an 18-month period, but catching up and staying. So the goal here is to catch up these vans that are at the top, that are very high mileage, get us more in line with the lower end of the list, and then continue to replace a normal replacement cycle of a van or maybe 2 a year, so that we keep the kids riding in lower mileage vans than 150 to 200,000.
I
I
don't,
understand the concept, but
Yeah,
I just wanna know why they have surplus every year and can never seem to find $40,000 to buy a van.
yeah, I mean, I think
And
that's
who's buying the vans?
who is buying them?
Yes, who's the person? I know Kugno used to be the purchasing agent.
Well, in this
I would
instance,
never sign on to this unless the fleet manager, if the town's buying these vans, then I want the fleet manager to buy the vans. These are owned by the town. They should not have, the Board of Ed should be out of this as far as purchasing the vans. They can submit a request, but I'm not gonna let these guys keep doing this.
yeah, I mean, I know, well, I don't know if the capacity exists. I mean, you've got a tremendous number of vehicles and equipment today under Jim and a handful of people.
Yeah, there is absolutely no way I could maintain.
Yeah,
I'm not saying maintain them. I know they have their own, but I'm saying these purchases stuff. We got $150,000 for 3 school vans. Caravans, Ford Transits. Where's there a $75,000 Transit? I'd like to see it.
well, the hope would be if the money were to go, then would be 4. I mean, it's like I said, most of the first page, which is the lion's share of the vans, are 140, 150,000 or higher. So we are trying, the overall goal of the capital effort is to catch up the school vans. We could certainly have a conversation. I mean, right now, Ashley took over that role. I mean, you guys all have your own opinion. I think we have a great deal of confidence in her. But
I do say that we did agree to buy two vans, right?
Yeah,
I think if we wanna have a separate session with Board of Education to discuss, I mean, I know that in the past, where they had year-end funds, they took 400,000 out of their monies and gave it to support capital requirements. I mean, we should have that discussion towards the end of the year and just say, look, do you have to use all that money towards your other expenses? Can you maybe take a little to
Earmark
help with some of the capital stuff? But I think that's a separate discussion, outside this, but we gotta, start that discussion again. We used to have that, so. And as far as now, I think we all agreed with the 2 vans.
but this is 2 vans for $150,000.
well, the hope would be to get 3 and potentially
Yeah,
if
however
money carries 4.
And that's why I'd like to see somebody that has experience purchasing vans for this type of
So the
operation.
town purchasing person doesn't
No,
do these?
they have their own.
Board of Ed makes the purchase, they take.
They spec it out themselves and,
Yes. And then the van is then provided to NBT, New Britain Transportation, who provides the drivers to drive the vehicles, and
I believe they maintain them too.
they maintain them, they certify, they insure the person, they validate the driver's license regularly, all of those steps that are needed, that are taken in the event there is damage.
Jim's would you be able to take on the purchasing of these vans? Because I know you have the connections at the dealerships,
No.
you know the people, and you know the process. I don't want to
two
get,
Rams.
I don't want to say the word fleeced, but I'm gonna say it anyways, because they were talking at the town council meeting about buying 2 vans for $150,000. And we're replacing caravans.
Well, keep in mind, I
Can you
mean,
find a $75,000 caravan
I think the person who was responsible.
Yeah,
was-
all the sides, but you know what I'm
And
saying?
there's only,
It's not for transporting kids.
I think the person that was responsible is no longer,
This,
Right,
the position is
That's what
gone.
he
So
said.
I think Ashley's doing her best at this point to
Yeah.
try to, and perhaps the two are still going to be purchased. I don't know.
and I will say the person who handles the day-to-day downstairs, not through any specific intention, just good luck, used to work for Jim at the garage.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I can work with them, take over the whole thing, it would be, I already got 2 big jobs in town now, between the garage and fire department. But I could work with Kim and Ashley and provide them some guidance and work on them that way.
yeah, because I know you're gonna get the town the best deal. So, I mean, I wanna make sure that that's the direction
I
we
can
go.
have some conversation with Kim and Ashley and, you know,
Help.
come up with a plan for
Okay. It sounds,
I mean, the only thing that is,
them.
from
My
our
boss
perspective,
over here wants that.
from our perspective here, you give us some, you know, quote information for everything. But we don't have a quote information in the van, do we? I mean, we should have that as a basis too, so we understand that. I know it's Board of Education, but
Yeah.
who gave us quotes on everything else? I mean, why not give us a quote on vans too?
yeah, I mean, these are town vans, they're not
Yeah.
Board of Education.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying, we should have a quote.
I mean, one of the things that we do look at sometimes with these is what have we paid recently? And so we've kind of looked in the $50,000-$60,000 range. We did have a wagon that was purchased in 23, but, or I'm sorry, 40,000.
Yeah, 41,000. Was 41,000 in 2023, October 30th.
Which is where we said the hope would be 3, potentially 4 if possible. Which would put a nice dent in the list, but would still leave a pretty substantial list of work to be done.
do you think we should have some communication with them about, I mean, I don't recall the agreement of them buying 2 and us buying 2, but I don't doubt it. Should we have some follow-up conversation with them about that?
I mean, it came up during the town council.
What's that? I'm sorry.
They brought it up, you remember,
Oh, the
the
2.
meeting,
Yeah,
he actually came to that meeting.
I mean, I thought that conversation was even older than last year too. I think it.
I don't recall.
I thought it was
Might have been-
actually,
You know, I thought it was older than
Yeah, it
last
might
year.
have been.
and I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying she wasn't, what Ashley had said, she wasn't at the meeting and had conversations, so.
Okay.
Um,
Right, so those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, so moved.
thank you.
move to transfer $120,600 as detailed on the accompanying spreadsheet to be attached to the minutes to cover year-end transfers and identified accounts.
Second. Discussion?
So Kevin, we're at the point where they're using more nursing overtime
Instead of per diem.
rather than per diem. Is that how I'm reading this correctly?
Correct. The overtime rate is equal to or less than the per diem rate.
Okay.
Because once they hit overtime, you no longer have benefits factored in. It's just purely the variable rate. And in the opinion of the VNA administrator, for patient continuity of care, it's preferable to use one of the existing nurses. And that's, to a certain extent, I mean, if the town manager disagrees, she reports to him, I would say it, but we defer from a professional credential standpoint, patient care. It's not financially, there's no financial difference or potentially a slight benefit. As a finance director, I won't step in and say how they should handle the nursing care if there's no financial difference.
I would just say, that's where I would have to rely on my staff, because that's not my area of expertise either.
I guess the question that would come up to me is, as we looked at stuff not that long ago about, the use of overtime when we've seen utilization, staff utilization at such low rates. I'd like to understand better what it is that's causing the need for more hours when utilization isn't, where we think it should be.
What ends up happening is you have an irregular pattern with patients. Medical circumstances don't always follow a standard work week. And we have a limited number of nurses. And like I said, if financially it's essentially equivalent or better per diem versus nurse, the administrator's viewpoint has been, I'm going to continue continuity of care and quality of care because the two nurses are outstanding.
Yeah.
And she's able to send them out. They know the patient knows them. And some of these folks may be seniors living at home alone, and having the same person come in is comforting to them and safe for everybody.
Yeah, I'm not saying, it can't happen, but I think there's a couple moving pieces here. It's the utilization of people, and then there's overtime. If we're having people that aren't utilized, and then all of a sudden their days are being extended, well, that's something that doesn't sit right. If it's a weekend thing or something where there's nobody on, nobody else that can do it, that's a different thing. But I think it's certainly something that the director, should be mindful of.
Fair point. And also keep in mind, the model has morphed, the leadership has changed. So there's a lot of things this fiscal year that everybody is trying to get their arms around and figure out best practices of how to get there. All, what I will say, we should comfort everybody, is that there never one moment where they've sacrificed patient care and quality of care.
It could be
That's
in
always,
emergencies too.
yeah. So it's a fair question.
Just out of curiosity, Kevin, the library, the non-union professional people, who would they be?
There's
Like
4 part-time professionals.
Like-
Lori Fink was one. Ann Henriquez used to be, but has now
like
moved
what
into
kind of
county.
profession? Not the,
I believe it's circulation, but I
Oh,
could be
alright.
mistaken.
okay.
The idea was they were not benefit eligible, they were permanent part-timers. So the plan was to move them into the white collar union. When the budget was adopted and they were in there, they were gonna move in. The discussions happened with the union, and the union objected based on the work that they're doing. And so they are now remaining in the professional area with basically a non-union professional position that HR has developed to meet the
I
needs.
was
So
curious.
we're just moving the budget dollars to match up where they've remained. They're the same people, same pay, all of that. This is just geographic between union and non-union, the budget.
I just was curious.
Questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right, unanimous, so moved.
Move to transfer $150,000 from the police extra duty fund to the police vehicles account for the capital non-recurring fund for purchase of police vehicles.
Second. Second. Question? Those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so moved, unanimous.
Move
Nice
to
when things work out.
Move to appoint PKF O'Connor Davies as the town's auditor for fiscal years ending June 30, 2025 through 27 in accordance with section 7-14 of the town charter.
Okay. Second. Question?
I took a look at their fees and had a little discussion with Kevin, although they're going up. I think it's about 13,000 in the first year, which is substantial. I looked at that in terms of what I know is going on in the industry. And the size of our town and the size of our fees. I, for one, would have to say that I think we're in the range, you know. I don't think this is outside the range of where we should be. They are a good firm. I've worked with them in the past, when I used to work. And, I think, that you probably could go out to bid and find someone who's going to do it for less, but municipal accounting is a very specific area. And I think you have to stick with someone who knows what they're doing.
Those in favor?
Thank you.
I guess the only comment I'd make on that, I mean, I did a lot of IT contracts or whatever. I think it's a lot of times it was our intent to stay with the same firms or whatever, but by going out to bid, it kind of gets them to sharpen their pencil a little bit too.
Well, he did 2 years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah, it's only
I
been
know,
a
but I
couple of
think
years.
periodically
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah.
One thing when Jerry and I spoke earlier today about it, I went back to the last time we went out to bid and there were only 2 bidders, PKF and another firm. And you look at PKF's number at about $67,000 this year. The other firm in 2024 had quoted $78,500. So approximately $1,500 year over year increase had we gone with that firm. So
Already.
yeah. So I think we are legitimately, we've had very good pricing. I think we still have good pricing. It's not as good, but it's been very good for several years now.
Do you remember what you were doing in Portland?
Well, Portland's budget was about half,
Yeah.
less than
Yeah.
half, so I wanna say we were probably, I think we were around 40.
Okay, who was doing it?
We had, oh gosh. We're here, so,
CLA.
no,
No.
give me a second.
Yeah,
I'll tell you. Sorry, I different hats on.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
couldn't believe the partners are getting a lot younger.
Well, that's because us guys are getting older.
The great Catherine was the senior manager in 2016 when they took over. She was she was the senior manager. She's been with us this entire time. Hugely valuable, not just for the audit,
Yeah,
but during
yeah.
the year if something comes up, if there's questions.
And there's pluses and minuses to keeping the same auditors too. I mean, the familiarity of the auditor to your systems and such makes it a less disruptive process. Changing auditors, you get new eyes, so that you get the benefit from that kind of stuff. I think if you have good firms, they continuously do things like changing staff to, give you that new look. I was auditor for town of Berlin for 32 years straight, I think we gave them a great product and certainly I know it was a great price. But, I think we have to look at it, know who we're dealing with, that's all.
During Mahoney Sable.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And they were good.
Yeah. They've been around a while.
Yeah.
All right, you wanna give us an update, Ken?
I had a couple things to go over, but the financials are in a good position. If there's any questions, largely consistent month to month, so I don't want to waste your time repeating. I think it's pretty good shape. 2 things to go over. One is the charter requires that the Board of Finance and the Town Council have a joint meeting in advance of the budget every year. So thought was to try to do that in February. So I just wanted to see if there are any particular dates. Obviously, Tuesdays are not going to be good between the council and the Board of Finance, but are there any other dates that are either particularly good or not good? And then check with the council next week and try to find something that overlaps and meet to discuss their priorities and things they want to focus on.
I will be out of town between February 10th through the 21st.
Thanks, Ron.
When are you looking, Kevin? Next couple of weeks or?
Probably in any, more or less any time in February that works.
Why don't we try the first week of February? When's it gonna be?
The
He's-
10th, the 21st.
First week of February.
Okay.
February 1st is perfect, yeah.
We can check with the council next week, see if that works with them and try to find a date in there that would. Those
Actually, since we're on the subject, is it okay with you guys if we can have our regular meeting that week as well, as opposed to the second week of February? If you guys are okay with it, obviously.
You mean the 4th instead of the 11th?
Yeah, or any other day that week.
All right with me.
If you guys are okay with it, obviously.
The only other thing you gotta look at is room availability, both of these.
What are you saying, George?
The only thing, other thing you need to look at is room availability, decent sized room for both the town council and DOF.
Yeah, we'll try to find a room for that. I actually have a conflict on the 4th, unfortunately.
Okay.
But we could try,
Any day.
if you wanna pick a different, like, if I can,
Yeah,
if
just.
the
Yeah.
3rd works, I don't know if Monday works for people.
It's not Super Bowl.
Tell me what we
Oh, no,
do.
that's a sign.
Jesus.
If it's earlier in
Sure,
the day.
like that.
Okay.
Okay. That'll just, as a heads up for everybody, that'll make it a special meeting because it's under 30 days
So that would
notice,
be
but
February 3rd.
Yeah.
Are you looking for the other one? We've got a tentative.
no,
I'll have
I
to
mean,
talk to
You wanted
this
do the definitive
council.
week.
that I think was the thought. I mean, I don't know if the 6th works for people, Thursday the
Works for me.
6th.
Okay, which one's which? That doesn't make any difference.
Works for me, yeah.
3rd would be the regular meeting.
Our regular.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you.
So town council.
The
combined
6th?
Meeting 5th or 6th, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever works.
Yeah. And I guess we can check and see if there's a night there that works or what's better for them and
Yeah.
try to get everybody together and then find a room,
What day did you say?
either the
Or
5th or 6th.
And it's just us and town council?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, anybody from the public is certainly welcome to join, but
Just looking at the overall schedule, there's like nothing on the 5th for any other meetings. 6th, P and Z's got the council chambers, but.
I think the last time we did it, last time we did a joint meeting, we did it at the communities
yeah, we can try the center or the library.
library.
See if the DOE is available.
Yeah. So we'll see what works best for council members and try to bring it together.
Okay.
The second thing is just a heads up for the meeting next week for the council. One of the things I'm going to talk to them about is the bond plan and incorporating bonding into the next budget to try to get some direction from them. So I had put an agenda item to get their reaction to it. We have the HVAC grants for both Hubbard and Griswold. So the idea was to do the second round of bonding for that. Some of that's going to depend on where the Public Building Commission is with plans, being able to go out to bid and where we are with the project. A second area was roof replacements. I had taken the bond premium and put that against roofing, which hopefully will largely cover this building and the design. But we still have the library community center, so there would be a little less than $500,000 intended to be bonded for that. And then 2 new items on there. One was an athletic facilities bond, it's just what I'm calling it, which would be for work to remove the East Berlin pool, replace it with a splash pad. There's talk about renovating the building, parking over there. There's also a few other projects. Castle Booze will be at the meeting next Tuesday night with the council to give them updated numbers, more refined numbers on the presentation they had done a couple of meetings ago. And then in addition to that was the purchase of another fire vehicle. So we're looking at about $1.5 million. So the bond would be about $1.5 million, but the debt service that would be proposed, so the issue would be $750,000 for the required 50% down payment. The one item that's not on there that then the council will need to figure out if it should be or not is the remaining portions of the police station renovations you want to do. That project's moved along. The first part's coming near an end. If you haven't been down, if you haven't had an opportunity to tour it, I think it came out great. And I haven't renovated a police station in my life, but it looks great. And it seems to have a lot of value to what the department will do, but obviously the second part is also critical with offices, meeting space, and a number of other areas that would finish it off. So one of the requests for next week is to have the conversation with them about what is your priority for the bonding? They could come back and say, hey, to all of it. They could add things, but I just wanted to give you guys a heads up that those are the items of the conversation. And that's to be included in the town manager's budget. Obviously, once it comes to you guys, it will be whatever you decide to do with it and what the council decides to do with it. But we're trying to get a good feel for what the town wants so that the town manager's budget submission reflects where the town would like to go from a bonding and debt service.
So this is next year's bond.
Yeah, the FY26 budget that you'll get in March. Yeah, which would be bonded presumably between July and September to provide cash flow. So anyway, like I said, I just wanted to, put that out there. It's the numbers are big. I mean, I will tell you, if the items I just mentioned are $8.5 million of bonding, if you were to do all of it, police station would easily push that up over $10 million if you were to do the other part of the police station. So it's having the conversation with the council to help establish priorities. And then hopefully between that and then your meeting in February and the dialogue there, we can get a good handle on what it is you'd like to see in the budget, so we can try to provide the budget that reflects where you'd want to go from a capital and more particular, the debt standpoint.
You want to mention the steep grant at all, how it relates?
Sure.
To
Yeah, you want to do it or want me to?
doesn't matter. So OPM announced another round of steep funding late last week. They've increased the amount from $500,000 to $1 million. So it's definitely worth, I think, if we can get a $1 million grant for anything in town, I think it's worthwhile. And so that's going to be another conversation with the council on Tuesday is to, one, what's the direction that the council would like to see as far as an application? Do we want to use that as some of the, what's the pool project or the flash? I don't know, but I don't want to leave $1 million on the table. But at the same time, we should come up with a 20% match to make ourselves competitive with it. So we're, I've been working with Kevin to try to figure out options. You would want $200,000 as a match because it's although they went up $500,000, there's 30 million in funding. So really, if you think about it, 30 municipalities are going to get funded. We want to be one of them.
Yeah.
So.
Kevin, just question about other projects out there where we approved tonight $30,000 for the architect for the golf course bunker project. That has been talked about as being a project that would probably need to be bonded at some point. Is that in your schedule sometime further down the road, or?
It is further down the road, but if the engineering works out and if everything is lined up and approved, it could be done sooner.
Okay.
And I think that's why we're trying to have as many conversations as possible to see what is the appetite and then what are the priorities, because we could easily get to $15 million in bonding. And my suspicion is, based on years of working, that that's more than the town's inclined to bond this year. So then it becomes, what are the priorities? I think the HVAC, the projects are committed. We have over 40% reimbursement from the state. Those are valuable projects, and finishing off the last two schools are huge. The roofs are important. This one's leaking and we're hoping to get to the library before it does. The fire vehicles, we took a pause for a couple of years now. But there's also the consideration of lead time. The last one we bought in 22, it's coming in 26, I think.
Yeah, 26.
So you're looking, it's $750,000 now, with the other part coming in probably, Jim's retirement party.
Kevin, some of those items you mentioned, they were not part of that $4,950,000 that we talked. You gave us a bond schedule that had $4,950,000 in it. None of those are above. Whatever you're saying now.
The roofs
Yeah,
were
the
in, the
roofs were in.
HVAC was in,
Yeah.
the fire vehicle is new timing wise. We've got fire vehicles in
I
there.
thought some of those were already in there.
But the
Okay.
pool, the pool was
yeah.
out a little
Okay.
further. Now it's looking, do we pull it closer? But again, that first conversation is with the council who might say, you know what, if we've got to prioritize everything, maybe they say the pool is next summer and we don't bond right now and they'd rather do the police station, or they'd rather not do any of that.
Okay.
That's where we want to start to have the conversation so the budget can more closely reflect what, what the town's priorities are.
The golf course bridges anywhere in the conversation.
In conversations with the director, those are being pushed priority wise out after the sand traps, after the bunker project. They are there, the safety, that is an element of safety that we need to consider. That one will be a little bit more extensive only because we're gonna have to hire some engineers to do work because it's in floodplain, floodway, I always get it wrong. But because of that, we need to have special certification from DEEP, potentially Army Corps of Engineers, depending on the size of the project.
Even if we're not using state money?
Yeah, I think so.
We wouldn't need DEEP if we're not using state money, is my understanding, but Army Corps is conditioned on the project itself. And we certainly need local wetlands, which that part I think is probably the easiest. Not that they're an easy group, but they're
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
I think there were only 4 or 5 bridges in the floodplain.
Based on the map we had, it was a lot more.
Yeah.
Based on the wavy lines I saw. I'm sure there's fancy stuff, but I see it as wavy lines on a map.
Want me to make, I could draw.
You could straighten them out.
No, it's,
More than 7.
thanks.
That need to be done,
Well, we'd replace them.
if you could.
And I did convey your message about the height of the railings and
I love tires for golf course.
Yeah.
all right.
Cover cracks.
I have one
Just go right
question.
over them.
The potential land acquisition on Chamberlain Highway, Blue Hills construction area.
Yeah.
What is that?
It's the Fontanella property. So I'm not perfectly familiar. You guys are probably much more familiar. There's 2 parcels of open space, and in between was this Fontanella property. The family is willing to sell it. So we've entered into an agreement pending on a contingent on a few things. One of which is the state has, the town has applied for a state grant. I believe it's open space water, something that's like an OSWA grant, which would accomplish about 65% of the purchase. So the idea there was, in the event we don't get the grant and the town wants to move forward, we would likely come back and ask for a non-budget appropriation for that amount. I wouldn't suggest bonding, even though we do have some open space bond ordinance capacity. That's a pretty small amount. You had appropriated grant match money, $50,000 in the budget. So we put 30,000 of that aside for pre-purchase work that we have to do, and then potentially the town share. There's also $20,000 committed by the Berlin Land Trust to help with that purchase. This would,
Well, what's the number?
the value that we're looking at, they've agreed to is $100,000 for the purchase, but then you have pre and post purchase costs. So that's where we start to come into that.
Oh, so it's a small piece of land.
Oh, small purchase, yeah.
Alright.
And it would connect to 2 open
Yeah,
parcels.
you worked to Berlin's
Yeah.
massive amount of open space already.
No, well, I mean, it would add to it, but my understanding, talking to Jim Mahoney, is the value is really connecting 2 open space parcels now.
All right, so we have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan, for coming.
Huh?
Bye, Woody.
Have a good night, everybody.